Hi there, I'm Michael from Smarter German, and today I want to show you a really neat way to deal with the German adjectives. So let's get started. Smarty is already looking forward to this. First question is, what is an adjective? Let me keep this short. Most of you might already know this, but in case you don't, it's a word that describes what a thing or a person or an animal looks like, maybe what is its form, its color, its smell, and here's a couple of examples. Yeah, it's basically a word that describes attributes of something. And just as a rough rule, it's of course not scientifically sound, but it's good enough for us. Adjectives always have an ending. Yeah, and I will contradict myself near the end of this masterclass, but for now, keep that in mind. That really will help you. Just a quick example of what you find out there if you search for adjective endings in German. And I always struggle with looking at these. These are horrible. Don't ever bother to learn any table by heart about this topic or any other topic unless for some reason you need to reproduce a table for your school or something. But that really makes no sense. Yeah? These tables are not helpful at all. Here's another example. Yeah, take a deep breath, ignore. Really, I don't want to take a look at these longer than necessary. Now, here's a very neat way of dealing with adjectives. So the problem you have is not that adjectives have endings. There is a limited amount of endings, 5 or 6 even. And the problem you have is rather that the noun that follows the adjective has a gender, needs to be in a case, and sometimes there is one or more of them. And that is a bit more of a hassle, but let me help you. So the first thing you have to ask yourself to deal with this is whether the adjective is marked. And what does that mean? Well, it basically means, as you can see in this example, there is an article in front of the jung, adjective, and that article has an ending. Yeah? So jung is marked by den, so we have a clear marked adjective here. Another example, eine, is an article and it has an ending, which is the e. Therefore, we have a marked case again. You can see this already here, den jungen Männern. One could say that Männern, that has this special n at the end, because of the dative, could also be seen as a mark. Yeah, so jungen is marked twice. And then, of course, opposed to marked, we have unmarked, which can only mean there is an article or no article without an ending. And there is mainly the article ein or mein or kein that can have no ending. And you see here, ein junger Hase hat viel Energie. So ein doesn't have an ending, therefore it's jung is unmarked. Or there is no article at all, as I said. So junge Männer sehe ich oft. Junge is unmarked because there is no article. If there is no article, it cannot have an ending. So if there is no ending, it's unmarked. We will work through this, don't worry about it. So let me just walk you quickly through this. You don't really have to take notes. You can think along. There will be a test after this, so let's take a minute only. You see the article is always highlighted and you have to just think along. Does this article have an ending? Der, das, die, dem, den, des. So any article that starts with a D always has an ending. That's out of question, no thinking required. Yeah, these definite articles starting with a D always have an ending. Therefore, this one is marked. So remember, marked means there's an article with an ending in front of the adjective. Eine junge Frau sehe ich nicht. You see eine. Clearly, eine has an ending, which is I. Therefore, this is marked. Junge Männer sehe ich oft. You see there is no pink article there, and therefore, this cannot be marked. It has to be unmarked. Ein junger Hase, we have an article. Ein, but it doesn't have an ending. Yeah? Ein is the really base form of the article ein, so no ending means not marked. This is a trick. This is a trick question. You see there is no article in front of Jungen, and therefore it should be unmarked, but I've highlighted the es at the end of kind, which is a sign for the genitive. And therefore it's kind of a hidden mark, and this is indeed marked. And you will see later, you see Jungen ends in en, remember that genitive, en? We will get to that in a minute. Die Energie einer jungen Frau hätte ich gern. You see there's an article, it has an ending er, and therefore it is marked. One last example, then we go for a test. Ich danke den jungen Männern. You see den is an article, it's a D article, like starts with a D, therefore it's always with an ending and it should be marked. And we have a double marker here again at the end of Männer. You see an N, that's the dative plural. You don't have to understand that yet. In dative plural you very often add an N, and that's a double marker for the dative. So it is also marked. Now you test this. This is important. You will see later why. Pause the video. I will relatively quickly go through this, but you pause and then you say marked or unmarked. And if you're wrong, take some time to think, where did you go wrong? Ich sehe eine junge Frau. Junge Kinder sehe ich nicht. Meinen jungen Mann sehe ich oft. Diesem jungen Hasen folge ich. Eines jungen Kindes Energie hätte ich gern. Geschenktem Gaul schaut man nicht ins Maul. Ich fahre mit einem jungen Piloten. You don't have to understand a single word here. All you have to actually keep in mind is the word jung, yeah, which means young, and that's all you need. And then you need to identify what is in front of it. Is there an article and does it have an ending? The understanding of this is irrelevant. So pause your video, make sure you write 1 marked, unmarked, 2 marked, unmarked until you have figured this all out. And now let's take a look. Then you continue and then we take a look at what is the correct answer. Here's your answer key. Now quickly check and maybe share in the comments of this video how many you got right in this test of the marked and unmarked examples. And if you have any question of whether why something is unmarked or marked here, just also write it in the comments. Good. Make sure you get this, whether you need to be able to differentiate between marked and unmarked adjectives. Yeah? Because once you know something is marked, you can apply 5 beautifully simple rules. And I'll walk you through them with examples, and later on we will test your knowledge. And by just watching this without really forcing yourself to remember anything, you will remember these rules. They are so simple, so beautiful. So just relax and enjoy. The first rule is once en, always en. What does that mean? Ich sehe einen jungen Hund. So once en, always en is short for once an article ends in en, the adjective also ends in en. So it's en. Ich sehe einen, einen, the article ends in en. So the following adjective or adjectives have to end in en as well. Very simple. Copycat. How to remember that, or how to know that you need einen Hund, not einem, that's something else that you will learn with my courses as well, of course. But once you know that, the adjectives are easy. A few more examples for this rule. And I give you the case and genders. You can ignore these. These are completely irrelevant for now. Yeah? For the adjective declension, it's completely irrelevant to know whether Hund is masculine or accusative. Of course, it's essential, but not for you to find the right ending. Ich spiele mit den jungen Hunden. You see here, den ends in en, therefore, jungen Hunden. Ich liebe meinen jungen Chef. Meinen is an article, it ends in en, therefore jungen also ends in en. Ich habe mit vielen jungen Menschen gearbeitet. En. Beautifully simple. Second rule. I'm hiding the rule behind my face. It's a second rule. Once E, always E, and you know this by now. So if the article in front of the adjective ends in E, the adjective also gets an E. Eine junge Katze. Die grüne Jacke. Meine neue Chefin. Diese junge Frau ist sympathisch. See how beautiful. As soon as you know it's diese Frau and you want to add an adjective, copy. No problem. Third rule. These two rules that you've just seen, they might already cover 60, if not 70% of your problems. And now we have sometimes something that is a bit more complex. So plural, dative and genitive. Once you get there, yeah, don't worry about this now. If plural is something that you're not familiar with yet, or genitive, not a problem. Just see the principle. So whenever you realize the noun be after the jung, after the adjective, is either in plural, more than one, in a dative case or in a genitive case, then you know the adjective ends in en. Yeah? So, ich folge einem jungen YouTuber. This is dative because of folge. Don't have to understand that or know that yet. You can see the dative in the ending einem. Only dative has the em ending. And therefore you know jung has to end in en. Ich spreche mit der neuen Kollegin. And here I see it's mit. Mit is a trigger for dative and I know neuen needs to end in en. Den neuen Mitarbeitern spendiere ich einen Kaffee. Mitarbeitern is an indication for plural and dative. Plus, you remember the first rule, once en, always en. So we have three markers here that tell us that neu needs to end in en. Die neuen Nachbarn sind sympathisch. Again, Nachbarn is a plural, which you will learn over time. And then you know neuen ends in en. Another one you might remember, die Kinder des neuen Mieters. That was the tricky one initially that I showed you in the beginning, and has a double marker for genitive. Yeah, so neu very clearly is marked by des and mieters and therefore ends in en because of the genitive. So plural, dative and genitive, when you see that, always en. The genitive you can mostly ignore. It's something that rarely matters until you reach mid-late B2. Yeah, and before that it's basically very simple. You just say Peter's car, Peter's Auto. There's not much to learn. Fourth rule. After der, das, die, always e. But not in plural, not in dative, not in genitive. And that's easy to remember, and I'll give you an overview later, because you work through these 5 simple rules from top to bottom, and once you have reached already this rule, you have covered already plural, dative and genitive in rule number 3, right? So after der, das, die, always e, what does that mean? It's a bit more complicated. Look at this. Welches neue Auto meinst du? And where is the der, das, die here? Can you see it? If you don't, let me help you a little bit. Welches ends in s, which basically could be replaced by das. Das neue Auto. Wouldn't make sense here, yeah? Das neue Auto meinst du? Possible, but it's different. So when I say der, das, die, I don't literally mean the words der, das, die. It could be, but I mean basically the endings er, s, and e. Take a look at a few more examples. Ich liebe deine neue Frisur. You don't see a D here, but deine ends in E, so it basically works the same. And it is once E, always E. It's another rule that applies here. Das neue Team, so I have literally a das here, so always E means neue has to end in E. Dieser neue Tisch, so I don't have a der, but I have a dieser. Both end in ER, and therefore neu has to end in E. Ich bin der junge YouTuber. Here we have der literally here. So after der does the OSE. Hope this is clear. So one last rule. These 4 rules are very easy to remember and easy to apply. We will test this in a minute. But they only work if you have a marked adjective here. Yeah? So in case the adjective is marked. That's why I said marked cases. One more minute. And here's the shortened or the more correct, precise rule. After always a. Now, last rule, which applies to all cases, marked or unmarked. And that rule is at the ending, no ending. At the end, no ending. Never. Der YouTuber ist jung. If it was a woman, what would you then, how would jung change? Yeah, der YouTuber is a man. So how would it be if you had die YouTuberin? Just think for a second. The same. I told you no ending, never. It doesn't matter whether the YouTuber is masculine, feminine, diverse or a dog. Nobody cares. Could even be a car. Yeah, some YouTubers are cars, I'm pretty sure. So if the adjective is at the end, it never gets an ending. And that is where I contradict myself from the beginning, where I said adjectives always have an ending. I still stand to that. But if you put it at the end, no ending. And no matter what. By the way, number 3 is not necessarily an adjective. Number 3 is, now you tell me in the comments what number 3 is. It's not an adjective. It looks like one, but it's not. Yeah? But for you, it doesn't even matter, because I've seen this done wrongly many times, where people simply add an ending here, whether it is an adjective or whatever this is. Yeah? I've heard and seen plenty of times, ich spreche sehr schnelle. Never ever. Yeah? And the same is with 4. So 3 and 4, what are these? Schnell and langsam, if they are not adjectives. Good. So 5 simple rules. These were once en, always en, once e, always e, plural dative, genitive, and in the en, after as e, always e, and at the end no ending, never. I don't think you need to really force yourself to remember this. Let's do a little test. Now let's test your knowledge. I'm hiding the word test, but it's a test of these 5 simple rules, and remember they are for marked cases only. So you see here eine Jungfrau. So what ending does jung get? That's the first thing. And which rule do you apply? Always say out loud the rule or write it down. So you have, and pause before you listen to my answer. Yeah, always really think along. So eine, once e, always e. Yeah, so you can see that once e, always e. You have to take my word for it because I'm hiding it. Next. And you see here eine Junge. Second example. Der Hund ist brav. Which rule do you apply and what's the ending? Pause, think, and then continue. At the end, adjectives don't get an ending. Therefore, nothing. Meinen jungen Mann sehe ich oft. What rule do you apply? What is the ending? Once en, always en. Therefore, meinen jungen Mann. Check this one. I give you the case always on the left. It might help. Now, what's the rule you apply and what's the ending? Dative, always en was rule number 3. And that means diesem Jungen. Number 5. Which rule? You see eines Kindes. You might remember, even though you've never heard of this case before. This is the genitive. And the genitive, you can also see it there, always ends in en. the adjectives there. Yeah, careful. All these endings we're talking about are adjective endings. We're never talking about article endings. It's a very, very important difference here. Yeah, and you can see that hopefully clearly. More examples. Eines jungen Kindes Energie. Dieses neue Auto. Which rule do you apply? After der, das, die, always I. Another rule, mit, gives away which case. Einem, you might have already learned this, is dative, and therefore dative always en. You can see that already a bit higher. One more, or two more. Einem jungen Piloten. Mit welcher neue Kutsche fahren wir? You see again mit. So mit gives away its dative, and therefore always en. One last rule. So the 5 simple rules were for marked cases only, and for the situation that an adjective is at the end of a sentence. Now, of course, we will also look at the unmarked cases where there is an article without an ending or no article at all. So if you see this example here, ich sehe alte Frauen, you see that there is no article in front of alt. Now, if that's the case, alt has to somehow do the job of that article. Yeah? You could theoretically replace alt with die. And you can see that the ending is the same. So if this is an unmarked case, no article in front of it, no ending in front of it, then you have to add the case ending to the adjective, or the article ending to the adjective, like you can see here. Another example, jungen Kindern traue ich nicht. There is no article here. This is actually a marked case. Yeah, a little oversight of mine, but also a good example. Nevertheless, in dative, you're pretty much safe with an N most of the time. So den Kindern traue ich nicht would be the same, just to make the point. But this is a marked case because of the Kindern. Yeah, fooled me. Das ist kein junges Kind mehr. So careful, junges. Yeah, even though there is an es ending here, it's not at the end of kind, so therefore it's not indicating genitive. Yeah, you see kein, but kein doesn't have an ending, and therefore junges has to take over the article ending. Yeah, die Energie junger Katzen hätte ich gern. There is no article in front of junger. There is an article die, but that is already covered by Energie. Every article has only one partner. It's pretty monogamous here in German. So die Energie, the die doesn't matter. So there is no article for Katzen, therefore this is unmarked, and as this is genitive, so it takes the ending that the article should have taken if it was there. One last example, no article here, and it's a dative, so it could be dem Gaul, schaut man nicht ins Maul, but the dem is not here, so geschenkt has to take the ending. This requires a little bit more practice and awareness, but this is something you learn with my courses step by step, very gently. But the logic is what I want you to understand, and once you get the logic, you have a way to deal with the adjective endings. You have a chance to get it. Yeah? And once you get it, you have a chance to practice this properly and to use it properly. Quick summary. It's important that you differentiate between marked and unmarked adjectives. Marked means there is an article in front of the adjective that has an ending. Everything else is unmarked. And if it's marked, beautiful, you have 5 simple rules. If it's unmarked, you put the article ending at the end of the adjective, as we've just seen. The problem with the unmarked ones is you need to know the gender of the noun, yeah? And for that, good news, I have a free course for you, which is the Smarter German Articles course. And that course you don't need if you work with the free trial of any of my courses, because this is the core technique that I teach in all my in all first lessons of my language courses. so that whether you take the articles course or you just go for the free trial of the first lesson, this is always there because it's such a sweet technique that will help you to deal with generous German articles in no time, and it's quite funny. And you need to know the case, and for the cases seem like a big mystery for many. They are not. They are very logical, very beautiful, and I have a masterclass on that, which you find also in my courses, not in the first lesson, but in the first 10 possibly, depending on the level, and it might still be on YouTube, but I'm not sure. If it's not there, don't ask me to put it there, then you just have to work with my courses. So this is the summary. Hope you liked it. Take your time, and it's worth going through this one more time, that you really get it. It's beautiful. It's very logical. Yeah. So let it sink in. It's a lot of information. Try again, and if there are any questions, just write them in the comments. Yeah. Or if you're a student of mine, reach out in the community, and I'm happy to clarify things. Now, one last thing for those who don't know my courses yet, there's an even better approach to dealing with these adjective endings and all the stuff that's related to it, and that's what I call the preaching technique. The preaching technique is basically a kind of verbal pattern drill, but done nicely, which includes learning the gender with my beautiful technique. Yeah, so it's all integrated. You don't have to learn an extra technique and do extra work. It's all in one flow. And then you practice a little dialogue. Basically, it's a monologue because you will do it on your own, but you can imagine you're two people. And it looks like this. Hey, siehst du einen Hund? Siehst du einen bunten Hund? Are you seeing a colorful dog? And person B then answers, which is also you, ich sehe keinen bunten Hund. I'm not seeing a colorful dog. Hey, surprised. Warum siehst du keinen bunten Hund? Weil ich keinen bunten Hund sehe. None of your business style. Yeah? So you see, this is not the most intelligent of dialogues, yet it is a dialogue. It is a speaking situation in which you practice the intuitive use of articles, article endings, and adjectives with the according ending. You practice negation, you practice irregular verbs, you practice dependent clauses. All this is already in such a little dialogue. And of course, we don't start like this, we start step by step, but you get there, and you can practice grammar like this neatly, and it allows you to speak proper German without thinking of any rules, of any tables, of any lists. It comes naturally. You say einen Hund, einen bunten Hund, without thinking. Because the problem with any rule, no matter how sweet they are, is that you can never apply a rule when you speak fluently. Look at me, I'm speaking fluent English, right? So I haven't applied a single rule consciously. I've learned to speak this way, and I do the same in German. I'm not applying any rules when I use adjectives in German. So the preaching technique is the best approach to really internalize grammar and to intuitively use it. Don't miss out on this. It's of course part of every free trial lesson that I have. Yeah? And if you work with my courses beyond that, it's part of every single lesson because it's such a valuable, beautiful, powerful approach. Give it a shot. If you want more smarter German, go to smartergerman.com. You can look for your level. If you don't know your level, it's A1, and there you just start a free trial. And the free trial is free and unlimited time-wise. It's the first lesson in a shorter version, so you can work through it in an hour maybe. Should be enough, because I've shortened it. Maybe an hour and a half, doesn't matter. There's no rush. Don't rush through things. Take your time to digest things. It really is important that you get these things to an extent, and anything you can't get, that you practice it intelligently, like with the preaching. Thank you for your time. I hope you took something from it, and if you have any questions, let me know. And share your results of the tests of this masterclass in the comments, please. I'm always curious to see how well I have explained things and how well you have understood things. And if there's anything I can improve, let me know. Have a wonderful time, stay healthy, and above all, enjoy your German learning. Take care.